Hi, everybody. Right, it looks like most people have been able to join us now. So, very good morning to you all. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'm really pleased that you could join us. My name is Marie Wadeson. I'm a managing director at K3 Capital Group, and I also lead the K3 Hub, which is a member network for professional advisors developed by a number of brands within our group. We have over 3,500 members and have been running for almost 5 years. So what I thought I'd do this morning was just before we get into the main body of the session, I thought I'd share what I describe as a few fun facts about K3 that you might not know. So you may be surprised to learn that K3 is actually the UK's #1 most active deal advisor. In fact, we're also the most active deal advisor in Europe and certainly in the top 10 most active deal advisors in the world. That certainly came as a surprise to me when the firm that I came from, Quantum, joined the group some 5 years ago. Our group is home to over 20 different brands who broadly operate across business sales and corporate finance, restructuring, tax advisory, technology advisory, and wealth management. Some of you may be aware that our group is also backed by US PE firm Sun Capital. And I just thought I'd share one of our most high profile and extraordinary deals that's just completed this week. So latest high profile deal is the completion of the sale of luxury lingerie business La Perla. It's a significant and complex cross-border insolvency involving office holders and their advisors, both in the UK and Italy, government stakeholders and authorities in both countries. It was subject to groundbreaking judgments and first of the kind protocols in a post-Brexit environment were negotiated over the last couple of years, which has enabled us this week to rescue this historic brand and save over 200 jobs in Bologna, where La Perla is headquartered. So I just thought I'd share that as quite an extraordinary deal that completed this week, and it's certainly high profile in Italy, more so to come in the next few days, I would imagine, here in the UK. So moving on to the main body of today's session then. So today we'll be looking at the various platforms from the giants in accounting software. We'll review some of the latest functionality and enabling tools, including blockchain, AI, machine learning, cloud, data control, compliance, collaboration, and workflow. We'll also discuss key changes to technologies in the 2020s. So a little bit of housekeeping just before we get going. So you will have noted as you join the webinar that we are recording today. This webinar will be hosted on the K3 Hub website. That'll be posted probably early part of next week. Q&A function is open, so do feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm chairing Q&A today, so if you would be so kind as to help me out and put all of your questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat, then that would really give me a lift. We think we're going to have quite a lot of questions today. We have had quite a few in ahead of today's session. So if I'm not able to get through them all in a timely manner, I'll pass them on to our speaker and he will come back to you separately after today's webinar. So moving on to our speaker. So I'm very pleased to welcome John Chinery to today's webinar. John is commercial lead at K3 Capital Group company Pinnacle. He is he's the commercial lead in their Intact practice. So Pinnacle deliver ERP, accounting solutions, and managed IT services to the SME market, and it powers some of the most well-known UK and Irish businesses with Sage and Acumatica software. John has worked in the field of accounting and business management systems for over 25 years and has architected and implemented change across a wide range of clients in how they use and improve their business systems. John, welcome to the K3 Hub. You're making your debut today. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Marie, and good morning, everyone. So forecasting and predicting the future is difficult. Technology moves rapidly and we're bombarded with information. So hopefully this next hour is going to be time well spent for you. Just me giving you hopefully a warts and all view of technology, what's real, what's maybe marketing fluff, what technology could become, and I do say could because it's uncertain. So we're going to cover some different areas of technology, blockchain, AI, cloud, and some other areas. Just to reiterate, that I've worked within this field for most of my career. I actually started my career in industrial laundry of all things, which in business systems in industrial laundry. But as you can imagine, when there's about 30 something tons of workwear flowing on a weekly basis, you end up getting you sort of roll up your sleeves and do what needs to be done. So it was quite a baptism of fire after that. Went into accountancy for a while, flirted with that. I'm from a family of accountants, so was encouraged, shall I say. But ultimately decided to join a .com, which was a very interesting experience because this is over 25 years ago. It was in the late 90s during the .com boom, and the company was a reverse marketplace. It was an e-marketplace, which kind of is a little bit similar to blockchain. We'll be talking about that today. And the reverse marketplace was for software and for services, so IT e-marketplace. So it was a very early baptism of fire for what ultimately became a career in accounting software. So one of after 9/11 and my redundancy from that .com company that ultimately went bust, that as many did after the .com boom was the bust. I worked within business systems. I had a Sage customer who ultimately became my employer because I sold my business to them. So that's kind of a potted history of where I've come from, and that's relevant later on in the presentation. So hence me mentioning it at the outset. And Pinnacle, we've got close on 2,000 customers. Been going 32 years. We are Sage's oldest surviving business partner. So we were very early on in their program of using value-added resellers and partners, and have been that ever since. So in terms of the agenda, as Marie said, we're going to be covering some areas of emerging technology, thinking about the importance of that technology, and I hopefully am going to not get into any waffle about buzzwords or where I use buzzwords or phrases. I'll explain those. If I don't, please do ask questions. Please do call me out on those. I mean, this should be about explaining things very clearly. And I think, sometimes the simplest questions about waffle and buzzwords can provide the most profound insights. So I've always taken that approach to technology is, well, when the marketing people say, oh yes, it's transformative technology for your business, I say, well, what's it transforming? I like to get into the I'm from a sort of my business management degree trained me in economics and accountancy and other disciplines, and I often look at the world from those prisms. So we're going to be looking at some emerging technologies. We're going to be looking at how those are reshaping financial operations, how that's affecting compliance, decision making, and also sort of give you some insights into staying competitive in that changing world. So we're going to start with the emerging technologies, and we're going to start with blockchain. So what is blockchain? So if I say to you that fundamentally blockchain is a database, that's all it is. And here on the left hand side, if we go back in time a certain way, for those of you like myself that have been in our careers for a while, we'll remember the days when we would have backup utilities and that we would put in a tape to the tape drive or a disk to the disk drive, and we would click backup server. And this picture by here, where we would have computer 1, 2, 3, 4 were computers on the network, and you had a server. So this blue cylinder here is the database, and this is what was called the client server setup. And this was kind of pretty much how every business ran and ran databases until fairly recent times. So the thing that's changed and the thing that's altered the world, I guess, and the alteration is simply that this central database has cloud computing, is that it's moved to a location in the cloud. It's in a data center somewhere rather than in your server room in the corner of your office, or in some little corner of your building. So it's kind of moved the location of the server, but cloud computing has kind of fundamentally just sort of moved this cylinder to a data center. The bit that changes now changes with blockchain. And there's going to be some phrases that we'll sort of talk about. You'll hear people talk about DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance. So it's just simply a way that, as we see in this, that a blockchain is a database whereby everyone has a copy of that database. There is no central server. Everyone is the server. It's a bit like Spartacus, like who is Spartacus? Everyone shouts, I am Spartacus, that everyone has a copy of the database. And the advantage that that gives, and I suppose the thing that's fundamentally different, is that creates transparency, because everyone has a copy of the data, everyone has a copy of the database, everyone has a copy of the ledger. It's therefore immutable. If I make a change to the database, then there are mechanisms, but everyone else, computer 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 say, hey, hang on, you've made a change. That's not the same as our database. And there's control. There's what's called immutability. And what that will therefore engender is trust, and trust is, in terms of one of the things that defines the difference between an advanced economy and a tin pot economy. I could use other words. Would be trust. I think the rule of law, and the ability for there to be certainty in business, and I think if there's one thing we could call out in our modern times, is when there's certainty, there's businesses can flourish. Where there's uncertainty, that can damage and affect business. So certainty is the watchword, and blockchain can provide that certainty. So again, this kind of gets into a little bit more of what is in a blockchain. So a blockchain will have, in my case here, I am the subject, I am the user. A blockchain is, just think of a blockchain as a program. We used to have applications on a server. Well, blockchain is essentially an application. It's a program. It sometimes gets called a wallet. So you see this, I interact with a wallet. A wallet is just another name for a program. It's, there will be people that will, and forgive me, I'm not a blockchain expert, or I haven't spent my career working on blockchain. So if you are a blockchain expert, I'm sure you can run rings around me and provide nuances of answers that dispute some of the things I'm going to say today. But broadly, a wallet is a program, and a program is a kind of an application, same as we've always had. So let's kind of pull away the curtain. Let's demystify this a little bit. So a blockchain module will have transactions and will have access controls. So wallets have something called keys. So the keys within a blockchain, you'll have different types of key. You'll have what's called a public key, and you'll have what's called a private key. The difference here, and think of this like your bank account. The public key is like your bank account number. If you were sending me an invoice, you would put your bank account details on that invoice for me to pay you. So the public key is something that gets shared across a blockchain. It's a known piece of information. But even though you've shared with me your bank account and sort code, hopefully you've not shared with me your your e-banking password, username and password. Those are examples of private keys. So things that are secret and not visible, not available, but are cryptographically. And I'm not going to kind of get too technical with you today, but cryptography is what blockchain is based upon. And the core of that is that it's bringing together a public and private key, and that's how we create a transaction, and that transaction will apply to a policy list. So the policy is kind of like, what sort of keys do we need? What sort of information do we need? What are the expectations? What's the consensus? So do we all agree? a digital signature is made up of those keys, and there'll be the ability or the capability of a continuous inspection or audit. And this inspection area, I would say, is more about audit failure rather than audit, because there's nobody that sort of, you don't have blockchain inspectors as such. There's no sort of human person or entity here, but it's the ability to be able to call out misbehavior, as it's termed, which is essentially, my database is different to your database. So, it goes back to the immutability. How do we deal with immutability of data? We also see with a blockchain and a program is all about, or typically all about interaction. It's about going back to the e-marketplace from the late 1990s. It's all about sort of bringing together different people or different bodies, in this case, a resource owner that then has a smart contract that interacts and transacts. And over here on the right-hand side, we see what's called objects. So any of you that have done anything with databases over the years, you'll kind of know the word object. Object means a data table. And within an object, you'll have what's called data and metadata. And within data and metadata. So what is metadata? Data is something like a noun. Is what I've always called a noun. So John is a man. That's a noun, I think, if my English teacher is not telling me off silently. And the metadata, John is a tall man, is like an adjective. It's the describing of the data. Metadata describes data, and that's all blockchain is. In essence, and we'll go on to sort of, well, what does all that mean in a minute, but you'll notice that I've not said the word Bitcoin until now. So Bitcoin and blockchain, I've heard so many people muddle the two terms together interchangeably, and they're not. Bitcoin uses blockchain, but Bitcoin isn't blockchain, or it's a form of, or it uses blockchain. And I suppose we can't really talk about blockchain without sort of mentioning probably its biggest use case today, which is Bitcoin. And what I've put there is a chart of what a Bitcoin is worth today, which is 122, or yesterday it was $122,000, and it's come from zero to hero in 10 years. Anticipating that one of you is going to put in the Q&A, what do I think of Bitcoin? Well, it might surprise you that if I say I don't like it, I don't trust it, I believe that it's a Ponzi scheme, but that's my personal opinion. I might be wrong, but certainly it's an application of blockchain, and all of those things that I showed you a moment ago, smart contracts and so on. I mean, that is all part and parcel of Bitcoin. So you trade Bitcoin, and the buyer and the seller, and the bit in the middle is the smart contract. Okay, so it's cryptocurrency is one application case of blockchain. It's not the only one, but it is one of those. I mean, I would go back to the function of money. Again, classically trained economist. There are three functions of money. It's a unit of exchange, it's a medium of exchange, and a store of value. Arguably today, Bitcoin is a store of value. It's not really a medium of exchange, and it's certainly not a unit of account. And I say it's not because, a year ago, you could have bought, 10 years ago, you could have bought a pizza with it. There's an urban myth story of somebody paying for a pizza with X amount of blockchain that's now worth enough to buy a chain of pizza shops. So it's the point about money is that it's a consistency that you know what you're getting, and so it can't be rapidly rising and be a unit of exchange, in my opinion. But that is only my opinion, and this isn't here to sort of speak positively or negatively. It's just to kind of give you my opinion. One of the sort of practical areas that I've got involved in recently, and as I say, this is a rapidly moving area, is a customer. It was an offshore customer of ours that expected to receive funds from clients in crypto. So one of the capabilities of our Sage Intacct platform is to work with a platform called Bitwave, and Bitwave, as you can see here, works with wallets and exchanges and custodians, and it's a whole load of words and explanations here. But essentially, it's bringing in AR and AP, so customer transactions and supplier transactions, or sending supplier transactions. So receiving funds from customers and sending funds to customers, and that's kind of a use case that's been quite an interesting project for us. So this is a very rapidly growing customer, and it's our first practical one where we've had to roll up our sleeves and get deeply involved with cryptocurrency. One of the challenges actually with cryptocurrency, and this is something that Sage is working on, is and every other accounting software is going to be faced with this. Fundamentally, currencies in accounting systems, apart from a couple of Middle East countries that use dirham that go to 3 decimal places, every other country in the world, a currency is always to 2 decimal places. So think about it: pounds and pence, dollars and cents, euros and cents. Everything is 2 decimal places apart from dirham, where they go to 3 decimal places for whatever reason. And there's about 4 countries in the world, maybe 5 countries in the world, mainly in the Middle East, that are using dirham and therefore have currencies to 3 decimal places. The accounting software that you use in those countries is fundamentally different, probably in an Arabic interface anyway, but is fundamentally different to most other mainstream softwares because of the 2 decimal places. So this is one of the areas that Sage are working on: is what if I want to consolidate my accounting system or my data across multiple countries and have a reporting currency in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And that's an interesting use case that isn't in the product today, but is something that we anticipate is coming. Whether it will be Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency or a stable coin or something else, it remains to be seen. But that's been an interesting project and use case. Another one is what's called Sage Network. So Sage Network is the idea that in a database or in a company's accounting system, there are lots of external bodies that you're sending data to or preparing data and sending data. It will be your bank, it will be your suppliers, it will be your customers, it will be financial, investors or finance companies. Sort of if you're sorry, the word's gone out of my head, but factoring. Sorry, yeah, factoring your debt. Yeah, your auditors will be involved periodically with your data. Merchant services and government, HMRC is obviously a big one. So something that's coming very quickly actually to France, not to the UK. It's under discussion in the UK, and nothing is certain, but across the EU, being spearheaded in France, is something called PEPOL. This is a word to take away from today. PEPOL is a form of EDI, EDI being electronic data interchange. Now, if you've got any large customers or you've got small customers that deal with large customers, you may have dealt with EDI over your years. And typically it's large corporates that get involved in EDI. Imagine a world where everyone is using EDI. EDI essentially potentially will replace OCR software, OCR recognition of invoices. Instead of me sending you a PDF with my invoice saying, you either type that in, Mr. Customer, to your system, or you use an OCR engine that reads it and then sort of lifts the data. What we're going to see instead is the digital EDI send and receipt of data. And this is what Sage are working on. So it's essentially e-invoicing. And again, this is a word that you may have come across, may have seen. It's arriving into France next September. It's very imminent. It's my contention that the UK will follow the PEPOL format. I don't think we'll unless the government at the time is particularly bloody minded and wants to do something for the sake of it, something different for the sake of it. I suspect we'll all be on Pepol at some point in the next years. Is my contention. What this will do is entirely replace the current process of accounts payable and payments, and and it's very likely that this will sit on a blockchain, because it would not make any sense not to sit on a blockchain, if you follow me. So that's something that is a slightly blue sky area, but something that's coming quite quickly. So sort of moving on into the let's just sort of recap on what is blockchain. So it's the decentralized ledger system. It records transactions across multiple nodes. I mean, this is the textbook answers, but hopefully what I've given you there is a bit of a flavor of, well, what it really is. The automation with smart contracts all sounds marvelous, but all it is the flow of data between two different parties. So it's kind of replacing what is today, as I say, things like PDFs and sending emails, and which has of course replaced putting things in an envelope and posting it. So we are further forward. We have digitized things a little bit, but there's more digitization coming, and I'd say the electronic transmission via a common platform. And by the way, whilst it's Sage Network, Sage have actually said to every other ERP company out there across the world, and if I say, now I might not have the entire list, but QuickBooks, Microsoft, Epicor, and there's a few others that basically have said, yeah, fine, we'll join your network. We will sort of federate on your network. So rather than build our own network, we'll use yours. And there's obviously some competitor products that have said, oh, we're not going to get involved in that. Well, what they'll be instead is a sort of almost like a guest access that you'll be able to use. So even if you're not using Sage software, you may find yourself or your clients using something called the Sage Network in the years ahead. That's something to look for. And the advantages of that approach is the immutable auditing. And the reason that the French government have been so keen and have insisted on 11 months from now, which is a very aggressive target, and a bit like making tax digital in the UK. The Sage and one other were the only companies to actually have compliant software in time for the go live, which I forget now whether it was April 2018 or 7. I can't remember, but the deadline for it to be part of every product, well, there was only 2 products that were actually compliant on the go live, and many others kind of got there several months or even a year afterwards, which was kind of quite consternating for people using other software. But anyway, moving to machine learning and AI, and I'm going to speed up here because I appreciate time's rapidly moving on. So I would say the big parts around AI, and one of the questions I think somebody asked me when I was putting this together was, well, how much of this is real and how much of this is marketing speak? Well, some of it is marketing speak. Absolutely, some of it is marketing speak. That I would say a lot of things getting dressed up as AI are really just things like automation, the creation of configuration of rules that they get dressed up as an AI engine, and it's not. It's just the same thing as we've always done. Creating a stored procedure, as they used to be called in databases, or a trigger, as they used to be called in databases. So AI is kind of has taken on a veneer, and you've got to be, of course, very mindful of marketing people who will sometimes sort of dress things up a particular way, when really what we're interested in as practitioners is, well, what does it really mean for me? What does it really mean for my business? So I would say the automation has moved on, and there's some examples that I'm going to give you on the next slide that talk to this. That it is starting to make a change, and I would say the replacement of paper processes is a large part of it. So if we move to the to the next slide. I mean, these are areas, and I don't want this to be sort of all about Sage, and I've tried to kind of, you know, just kind of tell you it from a practitioner point of view rather than any kind of, but these are the areas that Sage have been working on. We're introducing AI. So just quickly, journal approvals. I mean, this can be a real godsend lifesaver, and all it's doing really is just looking back over past records and looking at trends, looking at sort of it's called the outlier detection, and all it's doing really is looking at things that might be wrong, and it flags them to the journal approver to say, hey, you know, you don't normally post this income to this cost center. Like, is this a revenue center, a profit center, or is this a cost center? Because those are two different things. And but even just things like you know, everyone's got a transaction dated 2525 because somebody's press the 5 instead of the 0, or 2925 or something like that, and then you do a reversal in the year 2925 to reverse it back out again. Everyone's got a couple of those futuristic transactions. Well, the outlier detection, that's one of the things it looks at. It goes, are you sure you want to transact this 900 years from now, or have you typed a 9 instead of a 0, or have you typed too many zeros? Is another one. You know, I had somebody who there's a use case who, you know, it saved them from an overstatement of revenue of 300,000 because somebody had put too many zeros, and you know, it saved their bacon, and now everyone trusts the numbers in Intact. So it's kind of, that's a big area. AP automation, so essentially that's an OCR engine, but it gets called AI. I mean, one of the things it is doing that is a very more than just OCR is the line level matching. So just saying the PO says this, or the requisition says this, the invoice says that, and that could be the quantity, that could be the you know, I didn't order this, but I've been invoiced for it, or it could be the price, or it could be the quantity. So it's sort of, again, flagging things up. A help bot, so rather than having to know what words to search for, you can just say, I need to know about this, and it will go away. And you know, ultimately all that is a like a thesaurus that sits in the middle of the help. But that's what AI is in that sense on the Intact help. Intelligent time, I sat here talking to you between 9 and 10 this morning. Do I have to fill out a timesheet to say I spent 1 hour doing a presentation about new technology? No, the Intelligent Time will look at my Outlook calendar, say, oh, okay, I can see that you've got a project called new technology. I can see you spent an hour on doing a presentation about new technology. So it sees the word new technology and it fills out the timesheet for me. And I just sort of review my timesheet rather than filling it out and say, yep, that's what I did, or I can change it. And then it learns from me. It goes, oh, okay. So when I see the word new technology, what you really mean is blah. So again, all it's doing is a find and replace. You would do find and replace in Word or Excel or something like that. The close assistant is another technology that Sage are working on, that's in early release. But closing faster is probably one of the single biggest feedbacks that people give about Sage Intacct. So you know, doing something where you apply AI into that to present, you know, these are the discrepancies, these are the things that I'm going to help you with to help you close faster, kind of makes sense for Sage to be working on that. And then expense approvals, kind of pretty much the same as AP approvals and AP automation. So in terms of roadmap, there's a load of things coming down the line in the future: bank feeds, auto, you know, using AI to work out how to process those more efficiently. Copilot, which is essentially putting a large language model behind your accounting data, or a large data model behind your accounting data to help you draw out insights and build reports for you automatically by using words. You know, I need a report that shows me how much cash I'm going to have by the end of next month, and it'll go, there's a bar chart. Do you want me to put that in a PowerPoint for you? So it's those kinds of things that AI is doing in reality. You know, and Steve Hare, the CEO of Sage, has kind of you know, if you go and watch interviews of him, he does talk about, like, we want to make AI practical for the SME. We're not interested in doing very sort of buzzwordy stuff. We want to do sort of real stuff that helps real businesses. Is kind of how he puts it. Some of the other areas that I've seen, you know, not specific really to what I've been involved in, but MRP optimization using AI, how successful it is. It's quite a complicated area, as any of you that are in that area will know. Can it help you manage and optimize stock and stock levels, warehousing and put away, transportation planning? I mean, there's lots and lots of areas that it could help. But ultimately, it's sort of things like synonyms, thesauruses, find and replace. These are the ways that AI are in reality today. They're not. I would take issue with the word intelligent. It's simplistic. AS rather than AI to some extent. Blue sky thinking. I mean, I'm going to speed up even faster now, but I think the things that we're going to see in the years to come will be much more around integration. I think integration remains a very complicated, time-consuming process today. That Sage network that I spoke about will be one sort of area of that, but more than that, the biggest thing that people ask me for today is I want to stop retyping data. That's costing me time and money. Integration is probably the biggest single area. Optimization bots, there's some interesting areas there around businesses that are improving. Like, imagine I was interested in fly fishing from J.R.R. Hartley. um, uh, you know I might buy that book and go in October fly fishing. I don't know if that's the month to go fly fishing. I don't go fly fishing, but Amazon years ago would say, "Oh, yes, I can see you've bought a book from J.R.R. Hartley on fly fishing. Here are 4 other authors. Here are other books that are similar." That's sort of an example of what AI is still capable of today that Amazon was doing years and years ago. I think the optimization bit would be the insight that, well, hang on a minute, John goes fly fishing every October and so does every other fly fisherman. So let's not serve up fly fishing books 12 months a year. Let's not take a broad brush approach to marketing. Let's target it at the start of September, because we know John's going to be back from his summer holidays. So it's the kind of like the one-to-one relationship that AI is going to start to help us with, optimization bots that will help marketers get that one-to-one right with customers, and by understanding data and using large market models. And there's some examples I can talk about around that. Digital marketplaces, blockchain. I think we're going to see much more of that. So hopefully what I've shown you and talked about today kind of gives you a little bit of I wouldn't say there's any great digital marketplaces today. There's Ariba, but it tends to be kind of specific to SAP and specific to large companies. There's no SME digital marketplaces. Will the government introduce one? Maybe. Will one of the Mag 7 introduce one? Maybe. There's sort of tentative moves, but it's not there, I would say, in any great way yet, but it's coming. I think the idea of typing will go away. We will be interacting with computers differently than using keyboards, like Captain, or what's his name, Scotty in Star Trek 4, where he sort of talks to the computer and then has to sort of crack his knuckles and start typing to the computer. I mean, 41 years later, that film was 1984, we're still typing. Fundamentally, we are still typing into computers. I think that's going to change. Quantum computing is an area that's going to change things vastly, because it's going to speed up computing to a speed that and the UK can be very proud of what we're doing around quantum computing. Very exciting area. Ultimately, I look at AI as labor versus capital. If an AI is the capital and it's potentially replacing labor to some extent, I think that's the prism to be looking at AI, is to what extent does the cost of an AI module as part of Sage Intacct or anything else out there, to what extent does that module speed up and replace labor? I think customers that look at it that way make wise choices, and we've got some use cases where they've replaced labor and it saved them a vast amount of time. They replaced the headcount by 1 or something like that, just simply because the manual processes are so painful and prone to error and prone to delay and all the other things. It's not just about the time, it's about the accuracy. And finally, robotics. I think we're going to see a lot more around robotics. When ChatGPT, when AI is no longer a flashing cursor on your screen that you type with a keyboard with your fingers, instead that you are talking to it, that you're interacting with it, and it's interacting with you. I think robotics is one of the biggest changes we're going to see ahead in the world. And these are sort of blue sky thinking. How that will apply into accounting software specifically, remains to be seen, but gives you some ideas. Cloud computing, just very quickly on that. Yes, it's like taxis, so rather than owning a car, you hire a taxi. That's the way to think about it. And in most cases today, taxis are cheaper than owning your own car. So will it remain the case that taxis are cheaper? Part of it is that the taxi owners are also the guys selling the cars. Microsoft is an example, and Microsoft have consistently increased their prices on-premise software to the point where it's become very expensive, which has hastened cloud computing to some extent. But there's other benefits as well, and the simplicity of cloud is probably another thing I would call out. Compliance, just very quickly on that compliance remains a big issue around government compliance, and how will the government, how will the HMRC, how will Companies House evolve? I mean, there's probably some areas around that you may have questions on. And then just quickly on collaboration and workflow, that productivity tools, I think, and some of these things are going to be obvious to you that you use them already today. So I'm really just telling you what you already know. But I would say productivity and comms tools like Slack, like Teams, we have embedded collaboration tools in Intact. Those are very, very transformative for those that use them. And I'm probably preaching to the choir at that point. Democratization of multi-user. I think that's such a big change. The fact that multiple people can go to an Excel document and simultaneously make changes, create a shared version. I'm not saying it works terribly well, but it works better than it did at the start of my career, when it would be locked and you'd say, oh, can you log out of the spreadsheet so I can go in and make changes? It's at least it's a little bit better today. I think we'll see more in that in the future. And I'd say video and screen sharing, the fact that we're having this chat today, you've not had to travel to come and see me. This has completely transformed our working lives. Absolutely vast in productivity improvement, and we should really celebrate that fact. And finally, workflow design. I think that's a big area of collaboration, and programs that support that, sign-offs, are a big area of improvement. So workflows kind of then just feed back into points that I've made already about integration, about collaboration, about having things like secure portals to interact with other people, which might in the future be wallets or blockchain-based portals as well. And to conclude, because I'm conscious of time, that I guess what I've hopefully called out today is some areas of technology that are changing the world, that are to some extent marketing words and some extent real change. So hopefully you've got some flavour there of the difference between the two. That cloud and compliance are features that are part of that. That there are some other future trends and changes happening in the world. And I suppose, the thing that I would just end on actually is, back at the start of my career, at least once a week, I would have somebody say to me, probably quite proudly, oh, I'm a Luddite. I'm a Luddite. And I even heard it in the 2010s pretty frequently. And I can't remember exactly when, but I think it's probably sort of COVID and 2020s. But in the 2020s, and please, none of you say today that you're a Luddite, because you'll spoil my 5-year record. But nobody in this decade has said to me, I am a Luddite. Everyone is embracing technology. And I think probably the COVID time changed people's mentality. But I really would call out that sort of, no one is a Luddite today. We are all having to embrace technology, willingly or otherwise, and maybe part of that is just the generation that and we do see this, at Pinnacle, we do see this where a finance director retires, a new finance director joins the business. The old finance director was in their 60s, maybe the new finance director is in their 30s, and the first thing they'll say is, well, what's that accounting system that we've got over there? That is inadequate. If it's an on-premise system, that's inadequate. I want cloud. I want to be in the cloud. and they pick up the phone to somebody like me. So I think that, the thing that I would end with is that, whilst I'm not exhorting you to think about technology, because you're here on the call today, of course you're thinking about technology. I don't need to lecture you on that, but the thing to sort of, I suppose, just remain in your mind is just be very realistic as to what it is and isn't, and hopefully some of the things I've covered today have been useful for you. So I'll end there. I mean, the engagement part, Marie, I haven't been checking Q&A, so I'll defer to you for any points there.
Lovely, thank you, John. That was an extraordinary deep dive into accounting tech there. That was really interesting. As I expected, we have had questions, so I'm going to jump straight into those. So, I'm going to address them in the order that they've come in. So, first question reads: what actual blockchain-based marketplaces are there for SMEs today?
Oh yeah. Well, I suppose that Bitwave that I was showing earlier. I mean, that's kind of an example of one. I think that's an example of one. I have got a couple of links here that I've sort of prepared, thinking that somebody might ask me this. This is another Mind Starters. So this is quite an interesting one where historically, there is a saying, isn't there, that at the top of a hole in the ground is a liar. Well, how do you sort of, create truth within the area of financing a business? And I'm, this is particularly about mining, but let's keep it generic to sort of anything. One of the areas that I mean, this company or this initiative is doing is bringing in a blockchain across finance. So one of the challenges for miners, junior miners, is the ability or inability to raise finance on any kind of reasonable terms that private equity or private capital will be extremely expensive. The banks won't lend. Private investors are very skeptical. So how do you bring some kind of structure to that? So Mind Starters is this idea that as you hit certain milestones, there are smart contracts that will say, here's the cost and here's the reward at these stages, and here's the blockchain that provides a visibility, and that might be a trial balance on a monthly basis. It might be, some level of disclosure. And that might be above and beyond the current level of disclosure, above and beyond RNSs. So I mean, I could sort of talk more about this, but I'm conscious of time. Those are probably two of the good examples where I'm seeing sort of, like real world, and these are sort of SME examples as opposed to sort of large corporates. I don't tend to kind of deal with large corporates, and that world is also out there. So I'm sure there's lots of other examples.
Fantastic, thank you. Next question then. So, is the AI section you spoke about integration? Sorry, no, I'll start that again. In the AI section, you spoke about integration bots and making integration easier. When will any of that happen?
Yeah, it's can't happen soon enough. Is how I would answer that. I mean, one of the products we work with is this one, Data Blend, and Data Blend. I mean, and there's others out there. Zapier's another one that people may have heard of, and this is a way that it creates something called a PaaS, Platform as a Service. Now, I would say the AI element hasn't happened in any kind of meaningful way yet with platforms like this, but I would say that is coming, where what is sort of historically been a very complicated developer to developer, because you'll have two ends of the development. You'll have, I mean, in this case here, a HubSpot CRM end and then a Sage Intacct end. And, essentially what you're doing is creating the glue in the middle. Now, I would say AI is going to increasingly get involved in this, and maybe to the point where we'll see blockchains that are sort of essentially platforms as a service that provide kind of just easy to use interfaces. I don't know if I can, yeah, it's like this is sort of a quick example where you've got sort of data coming from one system that will be transformed. So transformed is essentially mapped, this field maps to this field, and this database calls it a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and this one calls it an A, B, C, or D. So A maps to 1, and it's all of that sort of thing that developers are today having to do, that you could sort of, in the blue sky thinking, you could really imagine a bot that would sort of say, well, let's work through your data. Oh, I can see you've got A, B, C, and D, and you call that field your I don't know, supplier type. And over here in this other database, I can see a field called supplier type, and the values are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to infer that A is 1 and B is 2. And looking back at past transactions, I can see that you've mapped it that way in the past, that A's have been 1s and B's have been 2s. So I'm going to just auto create that linkage, that flow through of data. Like, that is something that AI will and can do today. It hasn't been designed, but it's coming. It's coming, is my opinion.
Good stuff. Thank you. Right, next question then. So you said expense approvals various. Do you have a recommended solution for expenses?
Oh, well, I mean, look, we work with I mean, there is an expense module inside Intact, so we sometimes use that, sometimes sell that. The bit that's held that back, it has been that Sage haven't had an app for it, so it's a browser-based expense claim. It's not an iPhone app expense claim. That's now coming into the product. Well, it's already in the product in the US. It's coming to the UK in 2026. So we've tended to use third parties, and again, I can sort of share. Let's see, I've got. So if I go into the marketplace, sorry, I've not got this to hand, but yeah, so here within the marketplace, there's sort of umpteen numbers of expense softwares, platforms. We work with web expenses, but there's these guys, but there's Imburse, there's Expensify, there's Pleo, there's Concur. We can work with pretty much all of them. We've settled on these guys. The reason that we've done that is just simply they don't charge for every user. They charge for what's called active users. So if you've got 1,000 people submitting expenses, but in any 1 month you've only got, say, 10 of them actually doing an expense claim, they'll charge for 10 people, not 1,000 people, which we find is fair. We like we like their little platform. It's sort of does OCR, it has a web app, it sort of does carbon tracking and lots of little things like that. So it works well for us and integrates with Intact very, very easily.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm sure I can see there's lots of people coming in saying thank you for that. Right. I'm conscious that we have now got a lot of questions coming in and we have a small amount of time. So next question. You spoke in the AI section about large numerical models. Do you have any examples of those?
I do. Again, let me just quickly grab that. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very exciting example, which is so this is across the airline industries, and I think it's Virgin. Virgin and a couple of others that use it, but it's using AI to base it, kind of like what I was saying about J.R.R. Hartley and the fly fishing, but rather than books about fly fishing, it's the price of airline tickets. So I suppose what they are, I mean, I don't know what they're doing specifically, but I mean, they sort of dress it up with neural network brain helps you make business decisions based on big data. I suspect it's things like if you look for a flight at 2 in the morning, maybe the price that you're being offered is slightly different than if you're looking at 9 in the morning, or if the date that you're looking for is tomorrow, it's slightly different if you're looking a year tomorrow. And it essentially what they're doing is dynamic pricing, where the dynamic pricing is more than just sort of very simplistic things. It's a complex model, and these are sort of essentially what they're doing is they're just ingesting all of the data from all of the transactions that have ever happened, and then just working out sort of, what makes somebody click the buy button or not click the buy button. So it's going beyond that sort of, let's just throw sort of lots of fly fishing adverts at people that have previously bought a fly fishing book. It's kind of getting more sort of sophisticated. Well, what about selling them a new fishing rod? What about, like, it's all of that lateral thinking that I suppose a seasoned marketer would do, that these large market models are starting to do. And the way they're doing it is they're looking at all the marketing, all of the market data, to make some very, very insightful, but doing so in rapid speed. I mean, I think that's the other thing that's very, very different, is that, that the bit that a seasoned marketer can do and do very well is present that data. But the bit that sort of, I suppose, inevitably happens is it takes time. You've got to kind of analyze, you've got to kind of plan, you've got to execute. Like anybody that has done a marketing campaign or something like that in the past. So these sorts of things are starting to speed up by having an AI agent and by the way, I haven't talked about agents in my presentation, and that's an area that I would talk about in a future one if you want me back. But that's kind of one example.
Brilliant. I think, John, suffice to say, we absolutely do want you back. I've got one really very, very topical question that's come in that I'm just going to hold for a second. I just wanted to give a quick plug for some forthcoming webinars that I thought our delegates might be interested in. So 24th of October, we've got a CPD webinar, Employment Law Myths Busted. That's Tony is the speaker there. She's brilliant. 21st of November, another CPD session, commercial property taxes, super popular always. 1st of December, we've got the autumn statement and an accompanying panel with led by Jeremy Mindell, one of our most popular speakers. And then on the 5th of December, we've got year-end tax planning. So, John, the final question for you, which is super, super popular and topical. How do you think the problems faced by Jaguar Land Rover have affected opinions on reliance on the IT and AI systems? It's something that we've spoken about a lot around the K3 Capital Group, or the JLR situation, but your view on that?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think always having a plan B is part of, having the plan A, is that you've got to scenario plan in your business then. And part of that can and is, what do we do if and when, AI lets us down, or what do we do when systems let us down? I mean, it's the same as what do we do when a key person leaves the business, like resigns, and you've got to constantly scenario plan. And I know it's exhausting, I know it's time consuming, and it's difficult. It's that blue sky thinking, but not about exciting and funny things that could happen if Scotty gets his way and no longer has to type in a keyboard. But it's kind of the scenario planning of well, what do we do if and when this happens? And I think that would be my approach, is plan, plan, plan.
Great advice. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. That has been absolutely brilliant. And I can see that there's lots more questions that I haven't had the time to put to you. I'll wrap those up and send them over to you after this session. So anybody that hasn't had their question answered, John, will come back to you. In the meantime, all that's left to say is thank you very much to everybody for joining us this morning and taking some time out of your Friday morning to spend with us at the K3 Hub here. We're grateful to you, and have a great weekend, everybody.